Hello, this is Lee back once again for another review. Here we continue this Shimmer weekend with Volume 47. Wow, look at this. Here's our digital versatile disc and oh, look, it's Mario and Luigi from Nintendo. Look at that over there. Regeneration X and their usual cosplaying antics. The disc art. Here we've got Haley Hatred and the icy stare of Mercedes Martinez. Icy stare back. A lot of ice there. I'll just remove the disc here with the push button that I've replaced. And there we have Sarah Del Rey and her wannabe friend, Courtney Rush, doing her goofy persona. I'll say more about that. I like the Sarah Del Rey that was the champion. I love the Sarah Del Rey after the championship as she becomes kind of this brutal character. I love the Courtney Rush, who is the underdog athlete rising star. The goofy Courtney Rush I enjoy, but I prefer the old Courtney Rush, if you will. And of course the new Courtney Rush is the heel Courtney Rush. We'll have to see more of her to see what I think of that. But that's for another time. Alright, so this would be, of course, the Sunday show, the first one. There would have been dark matches here. Just referring to my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. Of course, with each new volume there would be dark matches, sparkle, things like that. But then when you get into the actual show, of course, the first volume and followed by the second, 7.5 hours of wrestling, as usual. That's Shimmer for you. The previous volumes, I should have talked about the debuts. Of course, you can see my previous review. Sparkle featured Angelus Lane, who has not appeared in a main Shimmer match. She had some injuries. She's talked about that in a podcast called Lane's Brain, Layne. Of course, we saw Shaza McKenzie, Leon, and Ray in the New York Knockout. Well, with 47, Sparkle, which I did not see since I was not there live on March 18th, 2012, Sparkle had Nikki St. John, who has not appeared in the main Shimmer show since that time, unfortunately. So I can't say more about her. But this was the debut of a tag team I'll be talking about in a moment called Misery. Great name. I kind of get tired of these tag teams where they simply combine the names of the people in the team. Very cheesy. I suppose it goes back to the tabloid talk about celebrity couples where they combine the names, like Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes becomes Tom Cat, and Brad and Pitt and Angelina Jolie becomes Brangelina. Very silly. But pop culture just can't help influencing wrestling and vice versa, I suppose. Mostly the other way around, though. Well, looking at the actual shows, matches, we have Taylor Made versus Rhea O'Reilly. Now, Rhea O'Reilly was growing on me at this point. When she first started, I thought, well, she's doing a lot of Irish stereotypes. I'm not sure what else I should get out of this. But the, oh really? O'Reilly chants were just they just caught on. Even when she wasn't in the match, even when she wasn't on the show, they were still there. So it was quite funny. And she got more into it. She seemed to be more comfortable and more outrageous with the fans and with the interaction and being just an entertaining heel. Now, Taylor Made started out more of a good character, and she sort of, became more bad over time. I think at this time I was not really that interested in Taylor Made. thought, well, she's just kind of generic. But she had a good match with Rhea O'Reilly. I was rooting for Rhea O'Reilly. That's just how it went. Moving on. Veda Scott versus Kelly Skater. Now, at this point, Kelly Skater, I always wanted her to win, especially against someone like Veda Scott, because I feel like, well, I should be on the side of the underdog, of the nerds, of the geeks, of the small persons. And Kelly Skater is such an arrogant person, but she's almost a lovable goof, because yes, she does cheat, but it's almost as like she doesn't realize how foolish she is. She doesn't realize how she comes across. Whereas someone like Portia Perez, it's like she knows she's bad and she does it anyway. Saraya Knight, she knows she's bad and she doesn't care. Lufisto, she's a fan favorite, but it's almost like she can't help it. She's a little crazy. But Kelly Skater, just always appreciated. Veda Scott versus Kelly Skater. Now, I am a much greater fan of Kelly Skater, good or bad, so I have to go with Skater on this one. Sorry, Veda. She did not catch on with me in these early matches. I've come to appreciate Veda Scott in her own way, but just simply not one of my favorites at this time. Amity versus Casey Spinelli. Now, Casey Spinelli, of course, her own charisma, no nonsense. I suppose there's always nonsense in wrestling, but what I mean is she has that self-confidence. Even though I haven't seen her a lot, she just seems to be someone who comes in and does what she does and enjoys it, and the fans can get behind that. So, entertaining. Calamity, very much enjoyed her. She doesn't speak and go over the top like Lufisto, despite the similarities in style, from teacher to student, but I liked that kind of dark, imposing character. She comes out to that music and she's just kind of like, nah. It's just, I think if she had gotten more time to develop that character, I think I really would have been something special. But at this time, it was kind of these young wrestlers showing what they could do, and a decent match overall, I would say. Moving on, the team of Kana and Lufisto versus Mischief and Christina Von Eerie. And of course, that was Misery. These two black and green wearing, punk girl and banshee girl together. I think it made an excellent tag team. They have the tendency to throw up the hook'em horns, the metal symbol, the woo, that they do. So a good match up, I think. And then, of course, Kana and Lufisto with their own unique shenanigans. I prefer Lufisto and Kana as singles wrestlers from one another, but nevertheless, they do make an entertaining pair together. So I think overall this was a fun tag team match, and most of the time you can't go wrong with these Shimmer tag team matches. Very rarely is it not done well, or at least better than what we're used to seeing on television, as I often say. Sorry to repeat myself, I apologize. Moving forward, Athena versus Sassy Steffi. Now, this to me is no-brainer, of course. Athena, sorry, Sassy Steffi. But I will say that over time, seeing Sassy Steffi, I just come to expect that she will be there, often with her valet, Mademoiselle Rochelle, doing what she does. And I suppose, in that sense, she is part of the show. I don't see her as an annoyance. This is not a bathroom break. Even if I don't personally consider Sassy Steffi to be one of my favorites, I nevertheless respect the work she does in this match. And Athena, I think, overall, does a good job in every match that she's in. Some matches, she appears not to be at her best, but generally she does well. And I thought this was fine. Not an overwhelmingly amazing match from start to finish, but fine, just fine. So maybe average for Shimmer, I suppose. Mia Yim and Davina Rose versus Portia Perez and Nicole Matthews. Now, once again, the poor underdogs against a team of bullies. What are we to do? Well, of course, we hate the Canadian Ninjas. How could they possibly win? They can't win, can they? But the poor, unfortunate underdogs. I don't feel, I guess, I don't feel as if they have much chance. That's sort of how I went in with this. And I thought, well, of course the ninjas are going to just destroy them. Or even if they don't, they're going to find some way to cheat their way through. And it's just going to be a mess. Someone has to teach the ninjas a lesson. And it has to be someone at the top of their game. It has to be. It can't be a couple of rookies. Rookies do get lucky. And of course the ninjas were once rookies themselves, but at this point they need someone of higher caliber. So this is just building up the tension of, oh no, these ruffians are going to come up to challenge for the championship, and who's going to stop them? This is serious. So that's kind of how it was going. Then we see Saraya Knight versus Shazza McKenzie. Poor Shazza McKenzie. Poor Shazza McKenzie. Saraya Knight does what she does, threatening the fans, acting like a bully, as she often does, just in her top form, as always. And poor Shazza McKenzie. It's not so much that we love Shazza McKenzie and want her to win. We just don't want her to be killed by this crazed maniac of a woman. Because Saraya Knight becomes more and more violent with each match, it appears. She cheats constantly, blatantly. At various points, it stretches credibility because the referee isn't disqualifying her, even though she's cheating constantly. But I suppose, from a storytelling perspective, she threatens the officials, she intimidates the announcer, she threatens and intimidates everyone, to the point where, it took so many wrestlers to pull her away from Brittany, her daughter, when they were having that scuffle. It's like she doesn't even care. Of course, in real life, you would think, well, they just wouldn't let her into the building, they wouldn't allow her to wrestle, they would revoke her visa, something. But of course, in the fantasy world of wrestling, we just somehow have to imagine that she's somehow getting away with all of this, and she's such a threat, and she keeps getting put against these poor underdogs, and it certainly generates sympathy for them. I might not have cared about Shazza McKenzie in the United States as a U.S. fan, but seeing her beat up by this wicked woman, that's not right, and that's what the fans are supposed to believe. We're supposed to gain sympathy for them, and Saraya at times even blatantly appeals to the fans with, like, do you really approve of this? Can you really, how can you let her go down without at least, trying to get her spirits up to have a chance? Like, don't you care what's happening here? So, this is a predictable match, if you will, but it had to be done, I suppose. These wrestlers, these newbies, these newcomers, they have to earn their stripes somehow. And maybe it's by defeating a Japanese wrestler, maybe it's by defeating one of these bullies in an upset victory, but they have to do it somehow. They have to earn their stripes. They find protection in numbers, but when they're on their own, they have to be tough. They have to toughen up. Moving on, Allison Danger and Leva Bates, Regeneration X, versus Sarah Del Rey and Courtney Rush. Now, this was the unlikely pairing when Courtney Rush became this comedic character dancing around and trying to be BFFs, as they say, with Sarah Del Rey. Sarah Del Rey having none of it, being very turned off by it, and Courtney Rush, almost flirting with her, trying to get her to be on a team with her, and tricking her blatantly into joining up. Now, Sarah Del Rey likes to fight, but for her own purposes, not for to help someone else out, someone she doesn't respect. So it was kind of a goofy but interesting side story to have the two of them as a team at this point. And then, of course, their opponents, of course, the lovable in-between characters of Alice in Danger and Leva Bates, with their cosplaying fun to generate support from the fans, but also their, at times, unorthodox and cheating tactics, and often losing, but nevertheless entertaining the fans. So the queens of winning, as Courtney Rush and Sarah Del Rey would become, nevertheless give a lot of trouble to Regeneration X, and predictably, spoilers, rising to the top. So there you go. Around this time, Sarah Del Rey was connected with WWE, and her time in Shimmer was short, unfortunately. But apparently she really wanted to be a trainer for the WWE, and training the NXT women, the first female trainer of the women wrestlers that they'd had, and now they're crediting her with some of the success that the NXT women are having, and which will hopefully filter into the WWE product, and the Divas division will become more like Shimmer and less like what it is now, which is very generic, very short, and not taken very seriously, unfortunately. Of course, women's wrestling on television has been a problem for a long time, and I will spare you the rant. I've already made a video about it, talking about the state of women's wrestling today. But there you go. So good luck to you, Sarah Del Rey. Do your part, continue what you're doing, and hopefully we'll get better women's wrestling on television. But in the meantime, we have things like Shimmer to keep it going, to keep the fires burning and the interest up. Haley Hatred versus Mercedes Martinez. As always, Mercedes Martinez never disappoints. Haley Hatred has a vicious and powerful streak within her, just as Mercedes Martinez does, and so the two of them together is an even match. I tend to go with Mercedes as my favorite, but nevertheless, I was excited to see this match, and I think you will be too. Moving on, the tag team title match, Ayumi Kurihara and Yaku Hamada versus Rey and Leon. Now, Rey and Leon, I wish they'd had more time in Shimmer, I think, to really feel themselves out and let themselves be known. I feel like Rey got a lot of success, Leon less so, but they were both excellent. I appreciated their styles, their uniqueness, and I think this was a great match. Now, when you see a Joshi versus Joshi match in Shimmer, you may be thinking to yourself, well, what's the point? I could just watch Japanese wrestling. But the thing to keep in mind is most of the fans that are watching, whether in the Eagles Club or on Digital Versatile Disc, have not experienced Joshi wrestling. And this gives them an opportunity to see it, even though it's not on a grand, Tokyo Dome or whatever stage. Nevertheless, this is an opportunity to see that there is other wrestling outside of North America, and some of it is very, very good. And so it's a rare opportunity to see it. Also, while it is certainly valid to appreciate the unique opportunity of having like a Canadian or American or Mexican wrestler going against a Japanese wrestler, to see that clash of styles, there are also, of course, difficulties because they may not train together and they have to adapt their styles in a hurry to make them work together. Of course, many of these wrestlers have worked together in matches in the past, and of course the fans don't always know that, and they may gel well, very well together, and have an excellent match. Of course, if you watch a Japanese promotion, you will see that there are usually at least a couple of Western wrestlers. The gaijin, the foreigner wrestler, is a staple. And of course, this will have complexity. The Western wrestler will adapt to the Japanese style, and vice versa. So it's not unheard of. But I think these matches are special, and with the mindset of Shimmer is that the Joshi are the best. And so Joshi versus Joshi is going to be an amazing match, no matter what. So it's well worth watching, and I don't see it as any kind of cop-out or filler or problem. I appreciate them very much. So there you have it. And the question of whether these Japanese wrestlers can do as much as they would do, say, in their home promotions in Japan, well, probably not. They probably won't have like a 30-minute match, but they may have a very good match because Dave Prazak and the other Shimmer promoters and staff and the wrestlers themselves, I think they have that sense of pride. They have that sense of admiration for the Japanese wrestling style and legacy, and so they will give them these talent room to do what they do and not hamper them unnecessarily. It's not as if they come in and, well, you have to lose to our wrestlers to make us look good. No, they're allowed to show off their skills. You can go online and you can watch matches that Tomoka Nakagawa and Yumi Kurihara, Hiroyo Matsumoto, and these others are in, and at times they are very intense. But if you compare it to the style that they have in Shimmer, it's not as if they're holding back. Sometimes the tone of the match is different. Like a comedy match versus a serious kind of match would be very different. But we've seen both in Shimmer, and they're very good. So I don't think we're being cheated in any way by having a Joshi versus Joshi match, or watching those performers in an American venue versus seeing them in their home promotions. So, continuing on, at long last, to the Shimmer title match, Cheerleader Melissa versus Jessie McKay. Now there, your spoiler, of course, right there. Jessie McKay being sent forth after defeating Mischief earlier, becoming the #1 contender in this system. And of course you can't necessarily see the story flow unless you're paying attention to the dialogue and follow one volume to the next. But Jessie McKay taking on Cheerleader Melissa, earning her way to the top. Two heroic wrestlers facing one to the other. And seeing, of course, what would become of Cheerleader Melissa's title reign. I think this was an entertaining match. I think, again, Jessie McKay, kind of an unassuming wrestler, with her gimmick and her look, you think, well, what's this girl really going to do? She's going to be easily defeated, and oh well. But no, she has that fighting spirit, and Melissa, a cheerleader? Really? Well, obviously she has proved herself time and again as a great wrestler. So the two of them together, while there are other wrestlers that I prefer to each of them, I think they had a wonderful match, and it's well worth a watch.